Hello everyone, it's Jim of Shiloh Kahal, and I'm here today really with more of a question in search of answer and or discussions. I don't really think anybody has the answer yet. I have some comments and some discussion related to the question I'm getting ready to pose, but this question isn't for just everybody, because not everybody will accept what some of us have. And it's for those who have accepted the Zadokite authority. And with that Zadokite authority that comes from us, as we're discovering from the pre-land of Bethabara, pre-land beyond the Yarden, in their exile, and on into their exile, and the Zadokites who are operating from a certain calendar, which is from Enoch, that includes 364 days with 4 intercalary days, and according to their canon of scriptures, which include First Enoch and Jubilees, and other scriptures as well, the Testament of the Patriarchs and other wonderful scriptures. So it's to this group of people who have embraced the calendar, accept the calendar, aren't arguing with a 364 days calendar found that they write about throughout scriptures evidencing the 364-day calendar. So we're in agreement with the 364-day calendar, and we're in agreement that Jubilees and First Enoch is authoritative scripture. But we all know then, actually we observe, I've got a gentleman by the name of George Newber who does a lot of, it's not that I have a gentleman, George Newber of GeoTruth, the YouTube channel GeoTruth, he does lots of work to establish this. And he's gone back into time. So we have, and the problem is that we have a 364-day calendar, but we have what appears to be a 365.24, some fraction of day solar year. So when we go to Enoch, we see that the sun moves back and forth through the gates or the portals, and it's supposed to take 364 days to arrive back to the equal days and complete the year, not 365.24. That's a problem. Most in our communities are finding ways to intercalate. We got Ken Johnson, who embraces the Zadokite calendar, who uses, I don't want to speak too much to the way he intercalates. I just know that he does. I think he uses an every 7-year intercalation to pull it back into time, because and others are using other means to intercalate. George Newber is actually tracking the sun, and when he has another way to determine when a certain day where we hit the equinox, where it should set the beginning of a new year. But my problem is that with every attempt to intercalate beyond the 4 days, I don't find any instruction in scripture. I find nothing in scripture about that. In fact, in First Enoch and in Jubilees, I find scripture to the contrary, that it's a mistake to add any days to the 364-day calendar. And not only are we messing up and I think potentially not only are we messing up the keeping of the Moedim, how it gets out of whack, and the keeping of the various appointed days gets out of whack. But I think there's some illusion in Jubilees that even the sun, even the actual creation gets out of whack. It causes the whole system to fall out of whack. Well, we have had this disobedience. So are we now operating in those days? And I'll come back to that. I know in just querying George a little bit, he says that, the sun has been operating on this 365.245, whatever the number of days are, for a long time. Since at least Egypt, you could go back. Is that Egypt during the time of Israel being in the land, or is it Egypt even farther back in antiquity, or is it Egypt more current? And he references, I think it's him. Somebody references that it's the Persians who have really probably the most accurate solar-based calendar. Again, based upon that 365.24 day. And again, in discussing just a little bit that I have with George Neuber, he thinks that the sun's been out of whack since at least the flood. And maybe that's true. Maybe that's true. I don't know. But what I do want to do is just pose the question and introduce, to whatever extent my terribly small voice in these communities can do. I want to present the question and begin a discussion, because I really feel like right now, everywhere I turn in the groups that I would value and trust, I don't hear anybody talking about this. And it almost, I'm not saying that people are avoiding the question. Maybe they don't know the question, but I see everybody arguing for the 364-day calendar, but I don't see anybody addressing the problems that we have with intercalation. There's no comment, there's no discussion. So it almost feels like we're ducking the issue, and I don't want to duck the issue any more than if you're involved at all in the debate and discussion over the shape of the earth, whether it's a globe or a flat stationary plane. They had this event back in December where they went down into the Antarctic to see if there was a 24-hour sun. Everybody on the flat earth side would say, no, you can't do that. It's not really doable in the modeling that we have. That really is Enoch-based modeling. But then they all went, the people that went down there, and I would say Austin Whitsitt is good enough, credible enough for me, and I can't think of her name that went down there. She seems credible too. And even Jaron, before he flipped, is credible. He saw a 24-hour sun. Now, I don't know what that means. I mean, in our day of deception, it could mean lots of things, but it also could just flat mean there's a 24-hour sun down there. And if there's a 24-hour sun and our modeling is correct, then there has to be an answer for it. And because of that, we have people, I can't think of his name. Why am I drawing a blank? He's got his model out there, and he's become, I'm sorry, I should remember your name. I remember it every other moment. Anyway, he's got modeling that is showing a 24-hour sun and began to predict it before they went down there. Others are there's work. So my point in that is, okay, so now we have a 24-hour sun. It's not what we expected. So we begin to discuss and build thoughts and ideas and things alongside of it. And that's my point here. I would just like to not duck the issue, acknowledge the issue, recognize the issue, define the issue, and start building a response to it, if not an answer. Okay, so I'm going to go visit the scriptures that I think my questions and my angst is coming from, or my, where I'm coming from. I'm going to go visit them before I speak further on it. I'll be back. Okay, so in addition to the fact that I haven't seen beyond the intercalary days of Enoch, I haven't seen anything in scripture related to intercalation and the ability or need to intercalate in scripture. If others have scriptures, great. I'd love to see it. But here are at least two scriptures, and the first of them is in the book of astronomy, 1 Enoch, chapter 74. And when we get to verse 13, and we're talking about, well, let me start at verse 12 just to set the stage. And the sun and the stars bring in all the years. I'm going to make this a little bigger. All the years exactly. And the sun and the stars bring in all the years exactly, so that they do not advance or delay their position by a single day unto everlasting, but complete the years with perfect justice in 364 days. So it seems like, according to Enoch, the sun should move back and forth and complete its circuit or complete its year in exactly 364 days and not 365. And then he goes on to say in verse 13, in 3 years there are 1,092 days. You do the math, that is, you divide 1,092 by 3, that's 364 days. That's okay because well, never mind. In 5 years there are 1,820 days. Divide 1,820 by 5 years, that's 364 days. So that in 8 years there are 2,912 days. Divide 2,912 days by 8, and that's 364 days. And then I don't really need to speak about the moon here, so we'll stop here. So here's what I'm saying, is that across 3 years, well, first of all, let me also address, because maybe I haven't yet, the problem is if you don't acknowledge the extra day and a quarter, our seasons will drift. Our Moedim everything will drift, and it will get out of whack. Our Moedim, our spring Moedim, will eventually move into the summer and into the fall, or in the other direction. Doesn't really matter. It's just going to drift. It's going to move. It's going to become a problem. By reckoning, by reconciling and intercalating, we are we're keeping, by all appearances, we're keeping our seasons intact. So we're having to add days just to avoid the drift in the seasons. So everybody that I've heard that is adding intercalation, eventually, like I just, the Zadok way, we were following their calendar, but this year they added a week. So they just made a week disappear and then started the calendar. They didn't make it disappear. That's the wrong word. But they have a week that they don't account for in the calendar. So we have 7 days that go by, and then we start the year afresh again. So effectively, because they stopped the 364-day year here, and then we went 7 days, then we started again. Well, effectively, they just added 7 days to the year. So we went 364 plus 7, so 371 days in this last year. Ken Johnson, I believe, is using a 7-year intercalation. Obviously, it seems like that must be what Zadok Way is doing too. There was a day a few weeks back, or a month or two back, that I was looking at that, and I'm not sure exactly what they were using. And George Newber is going to use the actual sun movement, and I think that means that he's going to have to intercalate, or he'll be intercalating, or would be intercalating every 5 or 6 years. But either one of those, any of those, all require intercalating, and that means adding more than 364 days. And if we go to the last one, 8 years, 2,912 days. Well, 2,912 days does not allow for 7 or 12 or 14 days to be added in there. If 8 years go by and we have more than 2,912 days, whether we account for them or not, whether we include them or ignore them, something's not right. We've gone too far. And there's no room. First of all, again, in 12, it confirms that we need to use just 364 days. And down here in 13, across at least 8 years, there's no room for intercalation of any other kind, for any other reason, according to First Enoch, as I'm reading and seeing and searching for potential answers. Let me go off to Jubilees here. Okay, so here I am in Jubilees, Yobelum, chapter 6, and here I am at verse 32. And you shall command the children of Israel that they observe the years according to this reckoning. And by the way, I do see the word reckoning, and I recognize the word reckoning. According to this reckoning, 364 days, and these shall constitute a complete year, and they shall not disturb its time from its days and from its festivals. For all shall fall out in them according to their witness, and they shall not leave out any day nor disturb any festivals. And then in verse 33, but if they neglect and do not observe them according to his command, then they shall disturb all their seasons, and all the years shall be dislodged from this order, and they shall neglect their laws. And I'll quickly read 34, but it's not as germane as 32 and 33 were to what I'm speaking of today. But all the children of Israel shall forget, and shall not find the path of the years, and shall forget the new months and the seasons and the Shabbatot, and they shall go astray as to all the order of the years. For there shall be those who shall assuredly make observations of the... I move down to the chapter of verse 36. For there shall be those who shall surely make observations of the moon, and how it disturbs the seasons and comes in from year to year, 10 days too soon. So we know, and this discussion of solar versus lunar observations, solar calendars versus lunar, it's not what I'm talking about. I know that, we're putting out videos about, who began to operate in the priestly leadership that came to power illegitimately in 175 BC, and how they changed the calendars to lunar based. And so we have all those problems there. But I want to go back up to verse 33. Because it reads, if they neglect and do not observe them according to his command, then they shall disturb all their seasons, and the years shall be dislodged from this order, and they shall neglect their laws. So going back to 32, there's a command to keep 364 days only. That's a full year. Now, and if you don't, then not only are you disturbing the calendar of the Moedim, then I'm offering up that maybe we've disturbed the literal seasons and the years, and have dislodged the years. Now, not you and me, because whatever happened many years ago. And okay, so let me see if I can make this clear, what I'm saying. First of all, I know there's this discussion out there that we have the priestly calendar, and then we have the solar calendar, solar reality. I get that. But to have a priestly calendar and then a solar calendar is effectively, it doesn't fit what we see in First Enoch. So I'm not arguing with the idea of a priestly in world calendar or solar calendar. I'm not arguing with that, except for that we're commanded to keep 364 days only. So I'm not sure what to do with this word reckoning. Here it is, conversation. I know where to keep it according to this reckoning. Now, reckoning can be taking something that is not and reckoning it as so, just like Paul teaches us to reckon ourselves dead to sin. Well, we're not literally dead to sin yet. We will be dead to sin, but we're not literally dead to sin until we die or are raptured. So we're reckoning ourselves in that time. But also, reckoning can be used as according to this accounting. So observe the years according to this accounting, according to this manner, which is how I think this reads, but I'm offering it up for suggestion. And if you do not, then I say it's not just the Moedim that gets out of whack. I think literally we have a disturbing of the seasons, and the years are a disturbing of the years. Now, I don't mean in a calendar. I mean literally. It could be that sin has, just like it did in the days of Adam, and since the days of Adam, and since the days of the Nephilim, and everything pre-flood, there was so much sin. And the flood, of course, our creation as we're exhibiting it is not like the creation that originated. And so has our sin served to literally change the way the sun and the number of days that the time that it takes for the sun to move through the year, to make all of its circuits to go through the year? Have we literally done that? Have we literally done that by disobedience? And is that disobedience to everything that is causing that? Or is it the neglect to maintain and observe according to his command, being 364 days? So is it all sin that is causing the disturbances of the literal solar trek? Or is it just this neglect of the command to keep 364 days? And if that's the case, if that's the command that we're failing to keep and causing the seasons to literally be disturbed and to operate on something other than a 364-day annual cycle, then what should we be doing? Should we be trying to accommodate what we see? Which I know this is what happens in churchdom. You know, we start accommodating what we see rather than doing what we're commanded to do. And if we were to do what we were commanded to do, would it change what we observe? In other words, if we literally, instead of adding days to our calendar, if enough of us began to literally keep the 364 days, knowing and in light of the fact that we're going to see seasonal drift if something doesn't change, but we keep it anyway, would we then literally impact the trek of the sun across the year, 364 days? Would it actually make the complete trek in just 364 days? Legitimately, would we see a supernatural changing of the order? I don't know. Discussion. But here's what I'm really after, more than anything else. I think that we have no command to intercalate beyond the 4 days Enoch gives us. And I think we have evidence that the full year and complete year is 364 days, not 365.24 days, or at least that's what it's supposed to be. Full year. And across eight years, only 364 days per year, that whole time. And then we see in Jubilees the command for 364 days. So I see no reason, no scriptural reason to intercalate, no authority to intercalate. And I see at least two things in scriptures that tell us 364 days only. Now I recognize that, well, let me just, before I even go on, this is what I'm hoping to see embraced. What I mean by that is in the communities of those who I am following and listening to on certain subjects. I'll call out Wes Blaze and Uncommon Ground and Sean Griffin, Kingdom in Context, and Ken Heidebrecht of Hanging on His Words, and Josh of Founded Earth Brothers. These are all folks that I appreciate and agree with much of what they do and their doctrines, but they are pushing for acknowledging the 364-day year. But I haven't seen anybody dealing with this. I haven't seen. And I don't know that they're ducking it. Maybe they haven't seen this. Maybe they haven't thought about this. But it feels to me like there is a ducking of these issues. And I just don't think we should be doing it any more than we should be ducking the 24-hour sun that was observed in the Antarctic. We need to, even if we can't come up with the answers, we need to acknowledge the questions and begin searching for solutions and answers. Just to reiterate, I understand and acknowledge the disparity between 364 and the 365.24 days that we are experiencing, and acknowledge that if we don't do something, by all appearances, we're going to have seasonal drift. I know that. I see that. But I just don't think, I'm just offering questions. I also know that there is, I wish I could remember. I just read it. I'm reading so much of the parabiblical writings, the scriptures that have been held back from us. And I'm in 2nd Baruch, and I just read 2nd Esdras, and I can't remember which one I saw them in, but there was a reference there that I could see that, things were out of whack, but would be restored when Yahushua comes back, and we have the second coming and the new covenant, and all the promises are fulfilled, and things are rectified. Maybe that's when we're going to see that year return and the sun return to its order. Maybe that's the only time and the only hope we're going to have of getting the sun back to 364 and meeting this calendar. Maybe. But my point is to just introduce the discussion and the topic and not duck it. It is out there. It's out there and it needs to be discussed, whether we can come up with the answers or not. Nobody has to, I don't know. And I can imagine, I've heard so many responses, and I know people can offer some explanations and some things, and maybe, but that's my point. Let's just begin talking about it. Let's acknowledge that there is this disparity between the command and the observation, and that our efforts to intercalate beyond the 4 days given us by Enoch is extra biblical. Unless somebody can tell me where it's at, it's extra biblical. It's not found in Scripture. In fact, it tends to work against the actual commands I can see of Enoch and Jubilees. So that's it. And to those of you who are faithful and seeking hard after the truth, I pose the question, pose the discussion. And that's it. Well, thank you. And may you all be Baruch.